Hi, this is Scott Bradfield again. We're trying another chair, moving around the office so I don't fall off the camera range. I'm trying to conclude a sequence which has gone longer than I expected it to, but that's part of the experiment of this course or these lectures or whatever you want to call it. They're just basically my experiences in reading books I like. That's basically it, and I'm trying to figure out how to make those available to people who might want to read the books. We've our first sequence has really been about completing an incredibly long and complicated novel, and we've been talking really just about the last 50, 60 pages. I'm trying not to give away any surprises. You can't really give away. There's no spoilers in Pynchon. There is a sense of a narrative coming to an end at the end of the book, but I can't imagine anything I tell you would spoil it for you. It's really the experience of reading the book. No plot summary will ever give you any sense of what this book is about. I wanted to do two brief things. Having finished the book this morning, I'm about to put it over on the shelf. I can say I probably put more man hours or work hours into reading this. Sometimes it was work because I didn't have the attention for it. Sometimes it was just great pleasure. It was always with the consciousness there was a lot of work ahead. And it was daunting, as I've said before. The two things I just want to talk about right briefly here is, while I'm recommending that you don't read this book as your first Pynchon, the level of inventiveness that is maintained throughout this book, even in the last 40 pages, there's more things being invented in the last 40 pages, more ideas, more narrative events than in most entire novels. So even in the last 20 pages, I started to give you some idea. I tried to write some of this down, some of the ideas, as I was reading it this morning in the bathtub. I mean, he's got a character who comes. He's got the detective running around Los Angeles, solving a murder of a kind of a Black Dahlia type murder, one of those sensational murders in L.A. And then there's someone called the syncopated strangler. So you have one of these L.A. serial killers running around in Hollywood. You have most of the characters in the novel are all kind of coming into or coming through Los Angeles and Hollywood, where all this light and all of these pictures of the world over the past 20, 30 years are started coming to life. And then you have the image of this invention of a camera that can take a picture and run it backwards and forwards so you can see those pictures and those characters in the pictures go back in time, go forward in time, and go off into alternate time streams. These are ideas that are coming into just the last 30, 40 pages. You have the detective investigating a murder in which he finds a psychic who, rather than look into crystal balls, looks in people's toilets. And there's a very funny scene where he's actually going in and finding things out towards the resolution of this other mini narrative that starts to come into the book and get connected to all the other narratives. You have, again, there's so many different things. I'll just try to get these. This is covering about maybe 10, 15 pages in the book before we get to the very long coda at the end, which is called Rue de Depart, since we leave all these characters behind. I wanted to read one brief scene, and I've just lost it. I wanted to read just one really short scene, just to give you a sense of what Pynchon can do on the page, and what he does in every scene. This is on page 1045. If you have a copy of the book someday, again, these lectures are designed to just be here when you want to come back and read this book. I wanted to read this as a very short scene, about this long, and one of the things that Pynchon does in this is he's just a master of scenes. He creates these huge, complex scenes that last maybe 2 or 3 pages usually, but even when he does a short scene, he does everything just beautifully and well. They're always very energetic, and they always have different ways of approaching narrative. I just want to do a really quick scene, just a random scene near the end. And this is Lou Bass Night. Remember, he has the sequence of kind of femme fatale secretaries in the building. I forget what their names now. One's called Shalimar, and one's called Mezzanine. And Thetis is one of them. So here's the brief scene. And read along with it when you get a chance. Back at the office, Lou found Thetis in a dither. You've been getting calls from a crazy person. Total panic in his voice every 10 minutes, like he's using an egg timer. In fact, he's due to call again, looking dramatically at her wristwatch. Just about the phone rang. Lou, avuncularly patting Thetis on the shoulder, picked up the receiver. Now look how quickly he sets up the scene of this panic caller who's coming into it. Thetis is a character within moments of appearing in a scene, and we already have this mysterious caller on the phone. The panicked voice belonged to Murrow Rideout. He's a character who's been in the book in the past, and now he's been reintroduced into the book, who lived out at the beach and described himself as an inventor. Like to come into your office, but I'm being followed, so any meeting will have to look accidental. You know Sycamore Grove, out on North Figueroa? Used to be a nice place for Iowa girls. Still is. Glad we can agree on something. Lou checked out a little 635 millimeter Beretta, just in case. Looks like some aggravation in the works, Chief, said Shalimar. You need any muscle along? She's the muscle, right? Nah, just 2 quick stops to make, but he copied the address he got from Emilio onto her appointment pad. In case I don't call in before quitting time, maybe one of you could drive by and have a look. Bring the Tommy gun. End of scene. Again, a completely dramatic, comic scene, but it's all leading forward in narrative, including the Tommy gun and Shalimar with the Tommy gun, who will reappear in a few more scenes. If you can remember what's been set up, because now several more interesting things will happen in the course of the book. I think I want to leave it at that. I don't want to even try this. I will say a few words about the conclusion of the book. We have the overriding image of the book is of this huge balloon, this kind of zeppelin of some sort. You know, this kind of science fiction image of a zeppelin in the end of the 19th century, which is riding through the book. And as the book is gathering force, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes, at the end of the book, a huge city. And we have the boys up there with the girls they picked up who were flying through the air. And there is I don't think, I'm not spoiling the book for you, I don't think, to read maybe just a couple of sentences from the end when we see this balloon disappear into the end of the book, which is, there's also a couple talking dogs on the balloon. One talks in Serbo-Croatian, I think. And I'll just read a little brief passage here. Never sleeping, clamorous as a non-stop feast day. Inconvenience, once a vehicle of sky pilgrimage, a vehicle that went traveling around the world, has transformed into its own destination, where any wish that can be made is at least addressed, if not always granted. So the final, he brings this kind of metaphoric power to the end of the book, which is this huge balloon which has been traveling to different locations throughout the book while all these other characters are traveling around in different stories, has become so big it's its own destination, like the book. You know, the awareness that he's creating this. There's the old Henry James image about the romance as a balloon that fills up with experience. I don't know if you've heard this. And Henry James says that the novel, the romance, the writer fills it with his experience and fills it with his imagination until the balloon takes off into the world. And whether it's the Scarlet Letter or it's the Princess Casamassima or the Golden Bowl, that novel becomes its own world. And it's an image that Pynchon almost seems to be playing with at the end of his book in a way that's far more beautiful to my mind than any Henry James novel. So there is a sense of completion at the end of the book. I'm going to say 2 final things. One, I don't think I've fully appreciated this book or fully enjoyed it or have fully understood the book. I can tell you from one reading. And I don't mean understand what the writer was trying to say. I don't think that's the hard part of the book. It's trying to remember the richness and enjoy the pleasures of the book. I don't think I've fully done that. Like that garage full of chocolates, I think my palate was sort of spoiled for long periods of time. I don't know if it's a great book or not. I think it's one of the most amazing books I've read. I don't know if it's a great novel. I don't know if I would, if I don't know if I can decide that yet. I think that the biggest problem with it to me is that there's so many sequences of scenes. Each scene in this book is brilliant. You can't fault a single scene in this book, I don't think, or a single sentence. I think I will stand by that. You can't fault a single sentence or a scene in this book. But there is times when you really feel like we're moving through these great adventurous experimental ideas, but they don't matter so much. There's not a sense of urgency for any of the characters so much as sort of an accumulation of all these great ideas. So I may be wrong about that. Again, I have to read it again, but it's how I felt, and it's sort of a hard way to read it any other way. I feel like in some of his shorter books, such as Vineland and Inherent Vice, and possibly in Bleeding Edge, another book I have to read again, that it lacks some of that compression and urgency you need, I think, in a novel to make it feel like a great novel. But I may be wrong on that. It's certainly it is certainly an incomparable piece of prose writing, and I would really encourage people to try to read. Try to. I would say to take all the academic books you've read on Pynchon and turn them inside out. Read everything they don't want you to read, and read the books that they sort of ignore all the books that they talk about, like Gravity's Rainbow, and try to get into some of these other novels. I don't know what the critical academic verdict is on this book, but it is definitely worth trying. I'm going to put it. I'm looking forward to putting this on the shelf. Do I have room over here? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do this just for some closure. All right. Actually, I probably did that off screen. Anyway, I put the book back on the shelf. I don't know. Can you see it? It's over there somewhere, and with my other Pynchon books. And we'll leave Pynchon behind now. Next time, I won't be doing another one of these for a week or so. My plan is to do only maybe one a week, and I'm going to try for the next book, very short. I'm going to try to do the opposite of a Pynchon novel, something that's really small and short, and a different type of novel altogether. So thanks if anyone's watched all four of these ever in the future history of the planet. I appreciate your patience. These are not well articulated arguments about these books. They're just trying to talk about them as someone who loves books and would like to share that interest in books. Okay, see you soon. Bye.